Sometimes the most surprising part of a famous person's life is not the success, but the questions that still keep them awake at night. Imagine this: two men, recognized almost everywhere they go, sitting quietly in the corner of a dim, nearly empty restaurant after a long day on set. Outside, camera flashes have faded. Inside, the only sounds are clinking cutlery, soft music, and the low hum of the air conditioner. One of them stirs his tea, the other traces circles on the table with his finger. Both have money, respect, and careers that once seemed impossible. And yet, what they are really talking about is not movies, not fame, but this small, persistent question. After everything, what truly matters? This question could belong to anyone. A student wondering about the future. A parent awake at 3 a.m. thinking about bills. Someone scrolling through other people's achievements and wondering if they've fallen behind. The question appears differently for each of us, but the feeling underneath is the same: the quiet confusion between what the world calls success and what the heart quietly calls enough. The story of Jim Carrey and Keanu Reeves can be seen through this lens, not as the tale of two stars, but as a mirror of ordinary human struggle, just magnified by bright lights and bigger stages. Beneath the red carpets and interviews, there are familiar things: financial worry, loss, loneliness, guilt, small joys, and the slow work of figuring out who you really are. Long before the smiles on magazine covers, both of them knew what it meant to feel like life was pressing in from all sides. One grows up watching his family count coins and wondering if they will have enough to get through the week. He learns that laughter can soften heavy moments, that if he can make people laugh, he can make the room feel lighter, if only for a few minutes. He becomes addicted, not to applause, but to that temporary relief he can bring to others. At first, it is just jokes at the dinner table. Then small shows. Then dreams that seem far too noisy for the cramped life he is living. The other spends a lot of time moving, never quite rooted, never fully sure where home is. There are complicated family dynamics, distances that cannot be crossed even by planes or phone calls. There is also tragedy, those sudden, cutting events that have no explanation. Loss that does not arrive with a warning or a reason, that simply changes the shape of your days. He learns to live with silence, to walk, to think, to keep parts of himself private, not out of pride, but out of a quiet need for safety. Both of them, in their own ways, know what it is to feel like life is unstable, to feel that everything could collapse. And both make a promise to themselves, in different language but similar spirit. If I ever make it, if I ever climb out of this, I will not forget what it feels like to be here. Maybe you've made a similar promise to yourself, at some small moment in your life. Sitting in a cramped room telling yourself that one day you will be kinder to others because you know what it's like to be ignored. Standing in a cheap uniform at a job where nobody remembers your name, promising that if you ever become somebody, you will greet every person who crosses your path with basic human respect. The outside world doesn't see these inner vows. It only sees what comes later. Over time, both men's careers begin to rise. Auditions turn into roles. Roles turn into recognition. The checks get bigger. The interviews get longer. Suddenly, those childhood fears of not having enough are replaced by a different kind of discomfort. The awareness that what you used to dream about is now real, and yet the emptiness you expected to disappear is still there, just in a quieter, more complicated shape. Success, they discover, is not a single moment. It's a long, uneven road. You don't wake up one day and feel finished. It's more like climbing a mountain only to realize that the peaks ahead are higher, and the air gets thinner as you go. For Jim, comedy becomes both a shield and a doorway. On stage, he learns he can transform himself into anyone. He bends his face, his body, his voice. He turns his pain into noise, and the noise into laughter. The world loves him for it. People say, he must be the happiest man alive. They don't see how exhausting it is to constantly be on, how the room can feel painfully quiet after everyone goes home and the performance is over. He begins to sense a gap between the image and the person. The image is wild, energetic, endlessly entertaining. The person underneath is someone who lies awake wondering, if I stopped being funny, would they still care? If the applause faded, would I still have worth? Many of us know a smaller version of this feeling. Maybe you are the helpful one, or the strong one, or the achiever. You have learned to play a role that others value. A part of you worries that if you stop playing it, you might disappear from people's lives. So you keep performing, even when you're tired. Keanu, on the other hand, moves through the industry like someone who has seen too much to be impressed by flashing lights. He does the work. He trains, he acts, he shows up. He becomes associated with intense, heroic characters. People project strength onto him, a kind of invincibility. But his private life is marked by losses that rarely make headlines in a way that matches their weight. He discovers a different truth. You can be loved by millions and still experience grief alone. Cameras don't follow you into the quiet moments when you sit in your living room, the world dim and blurry, feeling the presence of someone who is no longer here. Fame does not cancel out the ache of an empty chair. If anything, it can make it sharper, because people around you are celebrating while you are still learning how to carry your sorrow. You may know this feeling, too, smiling politely in group photos while your heart is busy holding a pain that no one fully sees. With time, both Jim and Keanu start to realize that their lives are filled with external achievements but still missing something essential. The old fears, will I make it, will I survive, will I escape hardship, have been partly answered. But a deeper question rises in their place. Who am I when no one is watching? Jim dives into big spiritual and philosophical questions. He talks publicly about the ego, about how the self we present to the world is just a construct, a story we tell. When he says, I wish everyone could get rich and famous and have everything they ever dreamed of so they can see that it's not the answer, he is not dismissing success, he is gently pulling back the curtain. What he's really saying is, the hunger you feel, that deep restlessness, will not be satisfied by applause, money, or status alone. Those things can soften certain parts of life, pay bills, provide comfort, offer options, but they cannot tell you who you are or why you matter. You may have had a much smaller version of this realization. Getting the grade you wanted, the relationship you chased, the job you thought would fix everything, only to find that after a brief high, life settles back into its usual rhythm. You are still you. Your mind still carries the same habits, the same anxieties, the same illusions. Keanu, meanwhile, carries himself more and more like someone who has chosen a different measure of success. He is known among the crews who work with him not so much for his stunts or his fame, but for small, consistent gestures, standing instead of taking a seat when the bus is full, listening when someone talks, remembering names, treating the person holding the microphone and the person holding the light with equal respect. These are small acts, easy to romanticize from afar, but there is something quietly radical about them in a world that trains us to look upward, to impress those above us, and often to overlook those beside us. At some point, both of them begin to understand that their early promises to themselves, to not forget where they came from, are not just sentimental memories. They are a compass. Their lives offer a simple, almost gentle reminder. Hardship can harden you, or it can open you. It can close your heart, or it can deepen your capacity for empathy. Fame doesn't change that basic choice. Neither does obscurity. The decision is always personal, and it is made over and over again in everyday situations. Think of the times in your own life when you were hurt or overlooked. Maybe it was a teacher who made you feel small, a family member who didn't understand you, a boss who dismissed your effort. You had a choice afterwards: repeat that pattern with others, or quietly end it with you. The deeper stardom, the one no camera can capture, might simply be this: refusing to pass on the pain you were given. For Jim, the path leads him toward a different understanding of creativity. Acting stops being just a vehicle for attention and becomes a kind of exploration. He takes on roles that challenge him internally, not just physically. He paints, he reflects, he allows himself to speak openly about mental health, about depression. In doing so, he risks disturbing the fun, carefree image people hold of him. But he chooses honesty over consistency. This is something many of us wrestle with: the fear that if we change, if we grow, those who liked our older versions might not follow. But there is a quiet strength in allowing yourself to evolve in public, to be seen as a human being in process rather than a fixed, polished product. Keanu seems to move in the opposite direction but toward the same truth. His presence grows even more grounded, but he keeps parts of his life strictly private. It is his form of self-respect. He knows that not every pain needs to be shared, not every story needs an audience. Some things gain meaning precisely because they are held gently in the dark, safe from commentary and judgment. Many of us feel this tension in the age of social media, the pressure to turn everything into content, every feeling into a post. But there is wisdom in keeping some experiences just for ourselves and the people closest to us. Not as a secret, but as a form of sacredness. So, what emerges when we step back and look at their journeys not as fan stories, but as human stories? We see that struggle, while cruel and often unfair, can give us two priceless gifts. First, it teaches us what truly hurts, so we can recognize and soften that hurt in others. Second, it reveals how fragile and temporary external success is, so we are not entirely consumed by chasing it. Jim and Keanu, in their different ways, both learned that being seen by millions is less important than being known by a few. That filling stadiums does not replace the need for one honest conversation. That the real work is not only in perfecting a craft, but in understanding why you are doing it and what kind of person you are becoming along the way. They found that even at the height of success, you still wake up with yourself every morning. You still face your thoughts in the quiet hours. You still have to answer that soft question: am I living in a way that feels true to me? And this is where their paths touch the lives of people who will never stand on a movie set. A person working a regular job, perhaps commuting in a crowded bus or train, may not have the world's attention. But they carry the same inner landscape: doubts about worth, memories of pain, a desire to be seen and loved for who they are. They, too, are trying to reconcile their outer roles with their inner self. In this sense, stardom is just another word for the external markers of success that our society praises: grades, salaries, followers, titles. Struggle is the inner journey, the invisible work. It starts the first time you realize that life does not always reward effort fairly. It continues as you decide, again and again, whether to respond with bitterness or with a deeper commitment to being kind. The untold part of the story is not the gossip or the secrets. It's the slow, patient transformation that does not fit into headlines. The way someone becomes more gentle after being broken. The way someone chooses to sit with their sadness instead of running from it. The way someone learns to accept that they cannot fix the past, but they can live differently now. If there is a lesson in the lives of Jim Carrey and Keanu Reeves, it may be this: no amount of struggle guarantees success, and no amount of stardom guarantees peace. The real journey is learning how to carry both your wounds and your achievements with humility. You might never walk a red carpet. You might never see your name on a big screen, but you will, without doubt, face days when you feel unseen, and other days when people suddenly praise you for something you've done. In both scenarios, the same question remains: who are you beneath all of it? Perhaps the calmest answer is also the most ordinary. You are the person who stayed kind when it was easier to be cruel. The person who kept going when it would have been simpler to give up. The person who, in small quiet ways, made someone's day a little lighter, even while carrying your own burdens. Jim found language for this in his reflections on the self, that beneath the masks of personality, there is a deeper awareness, something not defined by roles or achievements. Keanu embodied it through consistent action, through a way of moving in the world that says, we are all going through something, so let me at least not add to your load. Their stories remind us that it is possible to come from broken places and still become a source of gentleness. It is possible to walk through fires of loss and still emerge capable of love. It is possible to realize that the spotlight, while bright, cannot illuminate the most important parts of you. One day, the bright lights will dim for all of us. The job will end, the children will grow, the titles will matter less. Even the people who seem permanent will move in and out of our lives. What will remain, quietly, is the person we have practiced being. In that empty restaurant at night, when the cameras have gone, the two men finish their tea. They talk not about their next roles, but about the strange tenderness of being alive, of having seen so much joy and so much pain, of having known fear and fortune, and of realizing that under all the noise, human hearts are remarkably similar. They leave a tip, put on their jackets, and step outside into the cool air. A few people recognize them and ask for photos. They smile, they oblige. Then they walk away down the street like anyone else, two figures shrinking into the distance, surrounded by others who are also carrying unread stories. Your story may never be told in interviews or documentaries. It may unfold in small apartments, crowded buses, quiet offices, or anonymous parks. But it contains the same essential drama: struggle, search, and the slow discovery of what really matters. If you look closely at the arc of your own life, you might notice a pattern similar to theirs. Early hardship teaching you empathy. Success, however you define it, revealing its limits. Loss inviting you to reconsider your priorities. And somewhere in the middle of all this, a soft, persistent whisper asking, given everything you've lived through, how will you treat yourself and others today? Perhaps this is the quiet truth hidden in the phrase "from struggle to stardom." The real destination is not the spotlight. It is a way of being in the world that does not depend on applause. A way of living where your value is not constantly being measured against someone else's. In the end, the most meaningful form of stardom might be this invisible one, a life in which your heart remains open, your actions remain gentle, and your sense of self is no longer chained to what you own, what you've lost, or what others think of you. When the day is done and you are finally alone with your thoughts, that is the only kind of fame that truly matters. The quiet recognition within yourself that, despite everything, you have tried to live honestly, to love deeply, and to let your struggles turn you, little by little, into someone more human, not less.